Okay, so as you can see, what we first covered in the conception of the African creation of a supreme being, we find that that idea is also reflected in the conception of a person. Reflecting that same idea, that human beings are microcosms of the microcosm, which is the creative force. The next unifying tenet we shall be exploring is the act, practice, and thought behind libation. This is the oldest prayer form known to humanity. It is the most pervasive form of invocation in African cosmology from the ancient Nile Valley to date across the world. It is found in every spiritual and religious system: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Libation is not only performed with water, but also with a range of spirits or alcohol if one prefers. It's a quintessential aspect to the opening of most events, ceremonies, or even start to the day, as a means of invoking spiritual guidance and support. It is one of the most obvious practices in the traditions that highlights the continuum between ancient and modern systems. In the diaspora, it's even evident in secular spaces as reflected in the hip-hop cultural adage, pour out a little liquor, to commemorate the memories of friends and associates who pass on. This again shows this inherent knowledge that we just carry on and practice without even knowing where the origins of that practice may have originated. Considering the centuries of dislocation Africans in the diaspora have had from direct connection with the continent, it speaks again to that deep ancestral and chromosomic memory that we carry with us. We don't just carry trauma, we carry the skills and talent sets of those greats who also came before us. Let's always remember that. Peace, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. Yeah, I'm going to give you all a few minutes to digest it by playing some frequency vibration for us. Take your time, come with the questions. We have at least an hour to get into some things. You know, for those of us who've arrived late, they might even perhaps get to see a second preview. Let's see how the family feels. But for now, let's usher in an energy and think of your questions, because I'm ready for your questions. And let's go through with them.
Général Jean-Baptiste, ou te rentre dans le caille là, ou te ouais toutes mesdames à genoux, chapelet yo dans main yo, y'a pe ou les misères. Ou te ouais toutes mesdames à genoux, chapelet yo dans main yo, y'a pe mouter. Produzi la la vo produzanu ya. Produzi la la vivi vini pudu ye mwe. Sakte mare buki li mem la geli. Tambu bubri le wo ki bol pudwa se na kaila. Produzi la la vo produzan tepe. Produzi la la vivi vini pudu ye mwe. Calmoi pa ma chansi mare pa kebeli. La rode fe banda tout en soleil pa leve. Produzi la la wo produzanu ya. Produzi la la vivi vini pudu ye mwe. La 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 la.
Peace, family. Sacred Cosmology.
Let's
6
pause
unifying.
second.
Back now. What I'm going to do at this point, I'm also going to put the 6 areas covered in full. So bear with me while I skip through the presentation. Fine, there you go. I'm aware some people may have come late, so they may not have seen it, but that's the excerpt. Let's get some feedback. Let's get some questions. Did it prime any ideas in your mind? What did it bring any new information forward? How did you feel? Peace and blessings. Feel free, drop your questions in the commentary section. Brother Imani, is Brother Imani still on the call? Okay, so what we will do then, yes, okay, One Winged Angel, indeed, thank you for picking up that aspect. It was a very significant aspect for us to bring forward and out. What you can see with all these listed areas and themes is the very fact that knowledge carries on, and it's not necessarily carried on because we've gone to read a book where it's stored, but that it's something internal, it's something inherent, something within the very DNA itself. So I'm very glad that was picked up upon. Indeed, thank you very much. What I will also put forward to everyone on the call will be the idea that if you feel you would like to join the call, if you feel like you would have to want to discuss something, I will also give the opportunity for us to do that. And the questions are coming in. Thank you very much. We'll take One Winged Angel's question first. Her question is, how do we in the diaspora connect? That's a beautiful question. It's one I've had a few times over the years. In all essence and is all its purity, One Winged Angel, you're already connected. You're connected via the DNA. And where you want to deepen the connection, what that speaks to is for you to step into the practice of remembering that connection. And what that remembering process looks like is making time for ancestors. You know, it's implementing daily rituals that connect you back to that essence of our traditions. And what it does is it awakens much of the knowledge that we need to. As you know, the video clearly showed, how do you see quote unquote African American brothers and sisters on the corners performing an act which is highly sacred, and perhaps have not gone through any of that cultural education. So you're already connected. And the other thing you can also do physically is find spaces and people to connect with. Spaces such as these where we can have these conversations and have much of a share with each other. Because all that needs to happen is for the right question, is for the right information to awaken or spark up an idea in your head, and you see that that journey, you follow it through. So you're already connected, beloved, which is why you're here in the first place. That will be my contribution to that. Please feel free if you have any questions as well you would like to further elaborate if I haven't got the very essence of your question. Okay, so the next place we're going to is from Sacred Wellness. Now do not worry about the spelling. It's not an English lesson. You know, no one is going to um uh, mark your work, as it were. Where what? Let me remove the background for a second. Where is a good place to start when wanting to learn about African sacred science cosmology? My journey is mixed with Santeria, Christianity, Ifa, metaphysics, and recently Kemetic science. Well, Sacred Wellness Network, you know, this is not even self aggrandization or blowing the own horn. You are in um I would call it most one of the most vanguards in terms of organizations looking to reclaim that African sacred science and make it applicable, useful in our lives. We have a whole range of resources, some geared for those who are totally new to this topic, but you are not, and I'll cover some of the things that you already know and are involved with. But there's a free 5-day e-course that takes you through how we come into our journey. And then this is how you see the point I just referred to One Winged Angel earlier, that our connection is internal and directly connected. We have, apart from the 5-day e-course, which is free, one of the first places I'll tell you to a presentation to check out is African Sacred Sciences. I did a presentation on that. I will post that in the link, because for especially those of us who are coming to it, perhaps from, if you want to call it, lack of a better word, a logical framework. You know, logics exist in everything. So for me, no one really only has a logical framework. But from the point of view of, if we want to call it, a totally Eurocentric perspective to things, it's good to be able to see that some of these so-called high scientific theories are not discoveries at all. They are just extensions of indigenous knowledge systems that Europeans came to discover or come across in their journeys across the world. So sometimes it makes those connections easy to start with. So if you're that way inclined, the presentation on African sacred science is a great one. We also have one on the transformative self, which deals with exactly that, putting concepts in a comparative space so that one can see where some of these so-called discoveries are not recently discovered at all. You said you come from Santeria. Santeria is a very interesting phenomena, but again, it speaks to even my own development into a heightened sense of spirituality by making a, a honest plea to my grandmother, and then being able to start developing a deeper spiritual connection. And one of the first rituals I ever did, or even could conceptualize in my mind, involved the Christian rosary, because in Ghana I was raised Catholic. So the only forms of, if you want to call them prayer or invocation, I'd seen came from that tradition. But then I also had other things that I knew I could do, such as writing my thoughts on a letter, reading it out, then after burning it while there was a candle lit. So I would hope that you have an altar in your house, that perhaps you wake and you do regular libations, or you make space in your mind also for ancestors to flow ideas through. That is the best place to start, really, is yourself. You have to, through these practices, we open up channels for communication, and for things to reveal themselves. And this is why they say, we don't really learn anything. Everything comes from within. It's almost like a process of remembering that to bring it back forward. So those are some of the starting areas I can give you. Again, feel free to probe further if my question didn't quite hit it. If you say you're in Ifa, are you already an initiate? Because if you're already an initiate, you have more than a start, or unless it's more a working, a theoretical understanding of it. And if so, if all of these have been largely theoretical, then you need to move into practice, because practice is what creates the energy that manifests and governs and pulls everything in your experience. So please feel free to ask another question. And thank you for this, in the sense that the presentation is very clean and clear. I appreciate that. Thank you. Um, Leon Kojo Apia, my brother, indeed, excellent, my brother. I started to about Sunsum for the first time. Well, your Sunsum, as the presentation covers, is basically your spirit. It's what gives you the animation that your body has to move, speak. So that's one of the first levels to your spirit. Yes, Leon. And in the African tradition, in each, or in every rather, we have at least two basic conceptions to what we call your spirit. Yes, so your spirit, as you said, Sunsum is the first. But then, as the presentation covers, we have many aspects to our spirit. We have an ancestral sense of ourselves, yeah, which is what connects us to our ancestors. You have your sunsum that is animating your body. You have also another aspect that can travel, what people generally call astral travel. Yeah, there's that aspect of yourself, which is your divine or your highest consciousness, that is able to access information while the physical rests. Yes, according to Credo Mutua, the High Sanusi Sangoma, when we interviewed him for Ancestral Voices Spirits Eternal, in the Zulu tradition, he says there's 72 aspects to each individual spiritual self. So there's a lot of deeper learning that we can learn for ourselves. Hence the suggestion to One Winged Angel and the Sacred Wellness Network. We need to start with an inner practice, and also ones that connects us to ancestors, because our ancestors is really our doorway into the realm of spirit. It's the most powerful spiritual connection you can develop, and should develop first, even before you start to perhaps if it's initiations or higher traditions of the sort. I'll come to Henriotza. I hope I've pronounced your name right. Apologies if I haven't. My question is there anything like a bad ancestor, or the fact that an ancestor transitioned to the spiritual realm implied that they have transcended their limitations? That's an excellent question, because it's something that, personally, I've also contemplated. But I'll share with you some of the wisdom from some higher initiates that I've met over the journey, so that you can also have a deeper understanding. You know, what when we say the word bad, how loaded is that? You know, bad or good is only relative to the effects that you feel from it. You know, if you look at Europe, look at how wealthy, developed Europe is. Europeans worship their ancestors because the damage they did to other people made it good for them. But for the victims, that was very bad. So, what real value does good or bad have in essence? That doesn't mean we can't conceptualize of something as bad. Of course, again, it depends on your relationship to it. But Mama Sobon Fusome, of blessed memory of the Dagara traditions, she told it to us quite simply. First thing she said was, if you haven't been in the person's shoes, you don't even know how they came to be in possession of whether it's the bad personality or how mean they were to you. Then, even in that case, for such a person, what they require, in a sense, is your forgiveness, so to speak. Perhaps you can heal them of whatever, if we want to call it trauma or experience, that gave them those bad behavior patterns. Yeah. But then what is even the guarantee that if you were in the same situation, perhaps you wouldn't be the same person? So no. On the level, there's nothing like a bad ancestor. It's only how we perceive that person. And then I can take you into some other knowledge from what makes it broader, in the sense that everybody has some type of skill and ability. And in that realm of force, just energy, those personal perspectives don't hold that weight. Perhaps your ancestor may have treated you bad, but that person was maybe the most skilled sculptor you know. You're studying and you want to develop your artistic practice. You can invoke that essence, that skill set, because you see, whether you want to think of that person as good or not, that DNA that flowed through them also somehow has flown through you. So that connection is there. What you can do instead, when you come to your invocations for ancestors to help you again, you start to get specific. But what I've come to understand, from learning from those who have done it for longer and have a deeper connection, this idea that we have bad ancestors, it's not necessarily accurate. It's as bad as the way we experience life with them. And however, as bad as they were, we can also heal that connection. And when you heal that connection, it's a benefit to you.